Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Sunday morning and the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this little cookbook. This arrived yesterday in the post. Yes, chicken. Yes, yesterday in the post. And I haven't really had a whole lot of time to research it, but I wanted to make this recipe because I love this little cookbook. There's a few recipes in here that I want to do. It's called Recipes Rochester Casseroles. It was put out by the Rochester Stamping Company, and it contains casserole, ramekin, and bean pot recipes. Price 25 cents. Now, of course, like so many of these books, undated. And in the limited amount of time that I had to research this, I wasn't able to tease out a date. The company's long gone. They made earthenware and stone pots for cooking, like bean pots and stuff like that you cook in the oven. Essentially, an early version of French white with metal bands around them. They also made things like coffee pots and coffee services and all kinds of other metalware for the kitchen. The recipes are all borrowed from other places, which is fairly common for manufacturers' cookbooks in this time period. You would just compile a bunch of recipes from other places, maybe slap in one of your ingredient brand names, but in this case, they didn't need to for ingredients. It's all about cooking it in their pot. Pot of boiling water, salted. I've got some macaroni. In that goes. Very little information, but I wanted to do the recipe because it sort of plays into another recipe we did recently, which was a layered rice and then ground beef with tomato sauce, essentially a flattened meatloaf, and then another layer of rice and another layer of meat with some tomato sauce poured on top. This one's called Cannelon of beef and macaroni. And it's similar, not the same, but it's the same kind of idea. So in this bowl, I've got ground beef, and I'm going to add to that black pepper, salt. It asks for onion juice, but I don't have any onion juice. You can still buy onion juice in little bottles. At this point, it is a bit of a specialty item. The grocery stores that I usually shop at don't carry it. You can order it through Amazon, but I'm not willing to order a little bottle of onion juice from Amazon when I can just put in a finely minced onion. Kind of runs up to the same spot. Then I'm supposed to put in 2 eggs. 1 egg. 2 eggs. And half a cup of stock. The best way to mix it is just with your hand. Now, when I first read this recipe, the instruction to add a half a cup of stock to that amount of meat, I knew wasn't going to work. I knew in my brain it wasn't going to work, but I still did it because, that's what the recipe says. It's too loose. I'm supposed to now shape it into a loaf and put it on top of the bed of macaroni, and then add another cup and a half of stock into the casserole. I am not going to be able to fashion that into a loaf. So there we go. Macaroni on the bottom. And we'll plop this beef out into the middle. And then go around the outside with more macaroni. Pour around that beef stock. Cover. And then I'm supposed to stick it in the oven and bake it for 45 minutes. Now, there's no temperature given. As much as this book isn't dated, there are a whole bunch of clues about the time frame. And the way this recipe is written really lets me know that this is probably 1880s, 1890s. So we're going to put it in the oven. It's at 375 because that's the last thing that I baked was at 375. So I'm going to stick it in there for about a half an hour. I'll take a look at it, and then 45 minutes we should be able to pull it out. Okay, the next direction is to pull it out of the oven. take the lid off and pour over, it says a pint of tomato sauce. I don't think it's going to need a pint of tomato sauce. It also doesn't tell me whether I should put it back in the oven at this point. So I'm going to say I'm going to pour over about 1.5 cups tomato sauce. And the wonderful thing about cooking in this time period is when it says something like tomato sauce, it's really up to you as the cook what to interpret with that. There was no one looking over your shoulder ready to shame you because you chose the wrong ingredient or you didn't do it exactly perfectly the way that they're telling you that needed to be done. You had a lot of freedom from shame pre-1940 in your cooking. And that's something I think people really should embrace today in 2023. Just forget about what those people on the internet are shaming people about. Cook the way you want to cook. So I'm going to stick this back in the oven for about 15 minutes. Okay, so this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing.
Did I eat my whole bowl already?
Julie's eaten her whole bowl already. We did the whole tasting. We talked about it. I forgot to roll sound. Because, you know, it's the end of the day. This is absolutely great.
So what is it you need me to do?
Well, this is...
I can't eat any... Well, I could eat more, but I'm going to not eat any more.
Pure comfort food.
Yes.
I think the highlights of what we said was there's very little flavor in the meatloaf portion. We'd add more onion, maybe some celery, maybe some other flavors, but it doesn't need it if you've got a really good quality stock that you cooked it in and tomato sauce. Fantastic base to take a whole bunch of different directions, but it's incredibly comforting just the way it is, and I kind of love that dish.
I think I added that at some point, I added that you could add, it would be a great dish to put in all those bits of pasta you have, whatever they might be, elbows, bow ties, and then of course I mentioned Scooby-Doo pastas, which apparently are also known as...
Cavatelli. If Scooby-Doo is sold as Scooby-Doo where you live, let us know. If not, let us know if it's Cavatelli. Yeah, so all the little part bags in your cupboard.
No one ever know.
Of pasta, you just put it in there. This is... And don't cook the pasta like barely al dente, because you're then going to cook it another 45 minutes in the oven. Very comforting. It's a great dish.
That was like the highlight. I feel like there you go. Point. It was a much more interesting conversation.
It was a much more interesting conversation. You know, if I say so myself. If you sent this book, if you know that you're the person that sent this book, thank you for sending it. It's going to show up several times in the future because there's a few recipes in there that I'm intrigued by. And one here.
Am I getting a sneak peek?
Date fluff duff.
Oh my.
Yes.
The title itself is...
This is one of...
Well, there's going to be dates. We love dates.
This is Mr. Fletcher Berry's unique recipe. So that's coming up soon. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon. Love that. Give it a shot.
Okay.
And you can say, I think it's cooled down.
Is it?
As I'm wrestling.
Okay. It seems like it should be cooled now. It's not bubbling anymore anyway. That's better than it was when it first popped out of the oven.
It was bubbling really hard.
That was a little too much.
But molasses cornbread was really good. So that came out earlier. You should check out that recipe. This one, I
might question whether I grabbed the right utensil. It might be a spoon.
Let's get everyone just a taste of everything. Yeah, it's kind of a cross between a spoon or a fork, Jules.
It's hard to say. Pasta, meat, tomato. Is there anything else?
It's essentially a really super plain meatloaf plopped on a bed of macaroni and then baked in the oven with some...
tomatoes on top?
Well, the tomatoes go on at the very end.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm expecting, comfort food heaven if I don't burn my mouth.
Yeah, it's pretty comforting.
I put a smile on my face.
Comfort food always does.
It does. Simple, simple food. I think I'd do fairly well in the 1890s. Food-wise.
So many other things that would be tough.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a time period where spicing is very plain. I guess because you're supposed to taste the meat and the sauce.
I don't know. Maybe were spices hard to get hold of, depending
No.
on where you were.
No,
No?
not in this time period. We'd gone through a period earlier than this where things were heavily spiced and spicing was wild. And then it pairs back again. And now we're back into that sort of spicing is wild again period. This is really good.
It's a good base.
There's not much to this at
Now,
all.
did you pre-cook the pasta?
Yes. So the pasta did mush down quite a bit. I think you could lightly cook the pasta before you put it in. And you could use any shape. You could absolutely use any shape.
It's probably a great dish to get rid of all those little bits you got
Yeah.
when you don't have enough for everything else, which is like, a couple bow ties,
Yeah.
a couple elbows, a couple Scooby-Doos,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you got.
I believe Scooby-Doo is cavatelli to those people who don't know what Scooby-Doo is.
Sorry.
Here in Canada, it's labeled Scooby-Doo. If it's labeled Scooby-Doo where you live, let us know. I think it's cavatelli. Anyway, this is a great dish. This is a great dish. This dish, though, lives on the quality of your beef stock and the quality of your tomato sauce.
Yes. Yes, it does. Because it needs, would I add more to it? Yeah, I'd probably add some celery to it and maybe some, is there onion in it? Because I'm not tasting it.
So you're supposed to put in a teaspoon of onion juice.
Yeah, I'd put more onion in it.
Yeah. Anyway, this is great. Thanks for sending this book in. I love this book. You're going to see this a few more times. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.